Okay, can I get a roll call, please?
Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here. Statement of compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Pursuant to the requirements of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, notice of this meeting was included in the annual meeting notice filed in the office of the Borough Clerk, posted on the Borough website, and on a bulletin board in the municipal building, published as a legal notice in the Co-Star newspaper, and mailed to those requesting notice and providing payment in accordance with Borough policy. Can I get a motion to approve the amended agenda? Oh. Oh. Okay. I'm going to, removing the March 15th, 2021 minutes, and the resolution 2021-66, authorized contract with H2M Engineering Services for the Fairway Muse Water Waste Pump Station. Approving the 2021-67, approving the payment of the itemized claims set forth April 1 bill list. And 2021-68 will be awarding the contract for the Robertson Park project. Down to Earth Landscaping. Can I get a motion on the
Motion.
agenda?
Second. Yes.
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 Okay. Sure.
Okay, sorry for the interruption. So now we need to approve the amended agenda.
Make a motion.
Second.
Yes.
Mr. Casagrande?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, need approval of the meeting minutes from March 1st, 2021.
Make a motion?
Second. Yes.
Mr. Casagrande?
Yes.
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 Do we have any presentations? I don't think we have any presentations posted for tonight. Discussion items? Nothing that I'm aware of. Mayor and council reports. Let's start with Mr. Gala.
I have nothing this week.
Mr. Wilms?
No, nothing significant, sir.
Mr. Capristo?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Casagrande?
I'll break the streak, Mr. Council President. So a couple of things. First, on the 2021 budget, we did have the opportunity to meet with our borough finance team, and while our goals remain the same, we want to minimize the financial impact, obviously, to our residents, especially considering the continued situation with the pandemic response. There's still a few different things to iron out. We still have to keep things moving forward. So we're hopeful to get some final decisions on budget items and hopefully have a budget to introduce for next council meeting. So I'll keep everybody posted on that and whether or not there's anything that we need to discuss as a team. Yeah, hopefully by next council meeting, there'll be something we'll have a budget to introduce. Also just wanted to mention, we are introducing an ordinance tonight. We spoke briefly about it last week, and that'll be to prohibit any cannabis businesses in the borough. And I just wanted to state once again for the record, this is based on feedback and guidance from the New Jersey League of Municipalities, the legal counsel for our joint insurance fund, and a number of other parties. So we're taking this action that we can retain the borough's rights to make this prohibition, and we can always revise that down the road. But if we don't opt out and add this restriction, unable to do so beyond sometime in August this year. So similar to other municipalities nearby, that's that ordinance will do. And thank you to our borough council for working on that and turning it around so quickly. That's all I have.
Thank you. King?
I don't really have anything, to be honest with you. Because we're gonna take care of a couple of things that, I'm involved with tonight, so we're good to go.
Thank you. And I have nothing to report at the moment for law and public safety. Which brings us to the announcements. We have a letter from the Monmouth County Board of County Commissioners regarding the Municipal Open Space Grant Awards for the Shore Road Park improvement. Thank you to everybody that worked on that. Wall Township Planning Board public hearing for Monday, April 5th. Adoption of Round 3 housing. Fair share plan. And we have the Board of County Commissioners Resolution 2021-0217 adopted March 25th, 2021, denouncing the publication of a sexist and anti-Semitic caption in the Asbury Park Press. That's all we have for announcements. I'd like to have a motion to open the meeting for public comment.
Motion?
Second.
Anybody would like to come up?
Yes.
Mr. Casper?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Hit the button. Oh, it's on? Nope.
In the meantime, I can state my name. Not loud enough, right?
We're not recording.
That's on your Sheriff. That's on you.
I don't know.
Sharon Bateau, Beverly Avenue, Spring Lake Heights. Regarding Robertson Park, is going to be like a design plan and a public hearing so everybody can sort of look at what the specific plan is? Is there going to be a sort of design scheme and a public hearing of regarding Robertson Park and what's going to put in there? Because it occurred to me the other day that way back when there were meetings here and people were talking about what is a park. Someone said parks are for kids only. The discussion went back and forth, and we were talking about also having, besides playing fields and such, also having walkways and places of solitude and things like that. And I think it's even more important now, there's more and more people coming down here. The beaches are going to be crazy crowded. Divine Parks. Spring Lake has Divine Park. We should have Sublime Park. You know, we have a chance to do something like that now and sort of just really make the most of our open spaces that we make the most of our open spaces that we do have, especially when you see a lot of overdevelopment encroaching. So I'm wondering, is there going to be a public hearing? Are we going to get to see what the plan is before see all, you know, the trees and stuff like that before it actually happens?
Sure, sure. The plan has already been approved by the council. There is no criteria to have any kind of a publication, although it has been in the paper, a full layout in the Co-Star a couple of weeks ago by our terrific reporter who's sitting here tonight, and it explained everything in detail. The park is basically going to put back in it a lot of trees, a lot of pathways, places where kids can bike, adults can bike, adults can walk, kids can walk, they can jog. Not a park that's going to be overwhelmed with sports. That was the whole focus of the committee, is whatever is there, we're not adding to anything. The committee does not want any more sports in that park. They want to try to take it back as close to its originality as it was for many years. So they
I
want
don't
to
know.
bring back, you know, the fact that there is wildlife that lived in there, there's birds, there's owls there. So the committee wants to make it, like you said, Divine Park. Well, they want to make it Heights Park. Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I missed that. It was in the Co-Star a
Oh,
couple
yeah.
weeks ago?
It was a very, very detailed article and a whole picture of the layout.
Ms. King, there was also a committee that's been working on this for.
The committee has been working on this, yes. We've been working on it for almost 2 years.
You know, as things get closer, I just like to have a review. Is there a copy of it in the Borough Hall that I could?
I'm sure. Don't you have a copy? Yeah.
The council intends to award the contract for this.
Thank you.
Can we
Thank
post it
you.
on the website as well? I thought we did, right? The picture of that?
I believe we did.
That I might have seen.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you, Sharon.
Eileen Eilenberger, 12 Christian Pond Road, sorry. Have to go right.
Okay, all right.
Oh, there you go.
I just wanted to ask about, I see you got the Shore Road grant. I don't remember, how much was that for?
Don't recall at the top of my head.
125, 150.
125.
And that's going to be that last diagram that you had here a couple of months ago.
There was a design proposed, I believe.
Right. Yeah, okay.
I don't think that changed, did it?
Yeah, I don't know, that's,
Yeah, but not much. Did it? Okay.
I don't recall, but I don't.
I'll look at it sometime, like.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Move to close public comment.
Second. Second. Yes.
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 Which brings us to schedule public hearings. Ordinance 2103, ordinance amending and supplementing municipal land use, Article 3 definitions.
Do you want me to present now, or do you want to open the public hearing and I'll present whatever you?
We can open the public hearing.
All right, I'll make the motion to open the public hearing.
Second. Yes.
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 Can I start?
Yes, sir. Please.
I guess, as I said earlier, April Fool's Day was a day that I was clearly at my computer doing a lot of typing. The governing body and the mayor received a memo from me dated April 1st that went through the planning board's response to our referral of the ordinance, land use ordinance dealing with the definition section. Just so members of the public are aware, engaged in a process with Councilwoman King and Eileen Eilenberger in addressing some of the issues that have continued to arise in amongst your land use ordinances. And the principal purpose of dealing with Section 300, which is our latest, we've done 100, 200, we're now on 300, address the definitional sections of your ordinance. Primary purpose was first to remove all those definitions that were otherwise defined in the municipal land use law, incorporate those definitions there, so in case there's any changes, adopting ordinances and cross-referencing them. We then went through the remaining definitions which were not part of that. The ordinance is presented to you for approval. The planning board responded. We had referred the matter under Section 26 of the municipal land use law to the planning board. They responded and provided us a list of proposed modifications to the definitions. I had the opportunity first to prepare a draft of this memo and then meet. Obviously, I've been speaking to Councilwoman King this whole time, but I've also spoken to Mrs. Eilenberger about trying to figure out what the board meant by some of these definitions. I think it's fair to say that, and actually some of them weren't really even the planning board, they were coming from an officer. To try to limit my comments, I'm just going to ask you on this memo, I had made certain recommendations or concerns. It doesn't mean that the further defined if the planning board can explain why certain things are of concern. But there are four areas that I'd like the governing body to consider or address, and I'm going to go backwards. Pretty easy. Item number 12 on my list is they've requested a definition for front, rear, and side lot lines. It doesn't appear, I would recommend as your lawyer, it doesn't really not a concern. It's not something that's addressed oftentimes in your ordinance, so it doesn't hurt. With respect to item number 8, which is a modification to our definition of the setback line, the existing definition, which was unchanged, referred both to a street line and a lot line. There's no problem. They have to eliminate the reference to street line. That's perfectly reasonable and appropriate. With respect to the lot coverage, we had modified that definition. Your definition gave one of those lists that include but are not limited to, and which as lawyers which is a great catch-all phrase, but the way we defined it was to simply say all structures would count as impervious. Doesn't really matter. We can always insert that back in. One issue, though, was I want to make it clear the planning board recommended that the area of a pool be considered impervious. That was a discussion item between the three people that were doing it, because the area of a pool, obviously, when it's open, capturing the water. However, when it's covered, it is impervious because the water runs off the pool. Recommended that would be a decision of the committee. And then finally, a hotly debated topic. I've kind of lost track of it. You have a definition of porch, and the porch is generally an open air type of structure. The definition now says that the definition of porch, the porch has to be completely open other than a rear porch. The proposed definition said that you could have windows and screens. The planning board has asked that not be allowed windows on your back porch, but you screens. That's not a legal question. That's a policy decision of the governing body as well. So First two are really just cleanup items. I would ask that you consider it and not include it. Give some direction on whether your porch can have a window in it or just screens. And we can, the pool issue, is it impervious or not? Is that about right?
Yes,
Capture it?
yes.
I tried to condense it because it was a long memo. In any event, any decision you make is going to be an insubstantial amendment, meaning that you can adopt it this evening if you so choose, or you can obviously not adopt it, but we won't have to republish it and start from scratch.
Anybody got thoughts?
Any thoughts?
So we count the pools now as nothing. They're just pervious surface.
Yes. Yes.
What was that, Chris? So
Yeah,
currently, the pool is considered pervious lot coverage? Impervious.
Yeah, just so you know, sorry, and I apologize. The problem with your lot coverage definition was that it wasn't really a definition. Lot coverage, and this had a problem with a lot of your definitions. They had bulk requirements and I apologize for those who are not familiar with the board, but your lot coverage ordinance said lot coverage shall not exceed 50% in all residential zones and 75% in commercial zones. That's not a definition. That's a bulk requirement, just like a setback. It said lot coverage shall include but not be limited to building coverage, decks, patios, pavement, pavers, driveways, sidewalks, sheds. Yeah, that was an add-on if we keep that list in. That was an add-on, accessory buildings. Gazebos, pools, concrete, stone, and gravel. So determined to be part of your lot coverage. I gave King and Mrs. Eilenberger a modern definition of lot coverage, and that had the issue of the pool. So it's really 6 of one, half dozen others. Just the question is, do you count the pool as impervious? That's not illegal.
I guess it would depend on the type of pool that it is. I mean, if it's an in-the-ground pool with a mesh cover, then it's still catching the water regardless of summer or winter. In the wintertime, if you have an above-ground pool and it's got a hard cover over it, depending on how tight the cover is, whether it's going to catch water or let the water run off. But the area that the pool covers is, regardless whether the pool's open or closed, is not capturing any water. It's running off to the side.
Now, it's just like the conversations we have with Mrs. How many angels can dance on the head of a pin? So obviously, counting the pool as impervious coverage, which you did before. Okay. It's.
And what's the recommendation? They want to have it pervious?
Pervious. Oh, impervious, rather.
They want to have it impervious.
Counted towards lot coverage.
And it's been that way previously?
Yes.
We make no distinction between above ground, temporary stuff, things, okay. And just out of curiosity, with any idea what other towns are doing?
50/50. Yeah, I don't think there's a universal. That's always a debate.
When and why did it change prior?
No, it did not. No, it did not change.
Okay.
Okay, what happened? The proposal changed because I gave a definition of lot coverage had exceptions in it, and so this was a comment that from the board saying you should keep it as impervious coverage per the pre.
Okay.
I would side with the recommendation from the board.
Okay. Is anybody else objecting to that?
I think we can argue it either way, right? I think we should also, as far as is it porous, is it impervious, right? If it's in the winter when it's sitting there with the mesh cover, is it collecting water? Yes, but is it disseminating that water into the ground? No, it's not. What's the net effect, right? And what's the desired effect? I think we can look at it from that standpoint. Is it better to have it included as impervious in terms of how decisions will be made for zoning and who would have to seek a variance versus not, who would be able to put a pool in versus who wouldn't, you know, just thinking about it from that standpoint. What's better?
What is the overall goal, recommendation for?
I think I wouldn't want to speak for the board, but I'd speak generally, okay? As you get, I think it could be perceived as you get to a smaller and smaller lot, you're more cognizant of what counts as impervious, potential stormwater impacts on adjoining property owners, which is probably why you had it in your original ordinance. And that's the most conservative approach, but then obviously the most conservative approach then limits the extent of how people can put patios and decks and various things in their backyard. So it'd be hard to, I could tell you that what happens, so you know, is a lot of things. I went to the, and our zoning officer is relatively new, but, you know, anecdotally, Joe May's been around a while. Many of the members on the board, you know, although I didn't have access to the zoning board, is like, are we solving a problem, or are we creating a problem, or no one appears to have had a problem generally with the current conditions, but I can't speak as a planner to say, hey, you got X amount of. I would defer to someone who knows the business better than me.
From my reading through that our lot coverage definition, we're including decks as part of lot coverage, where generally decks have porous surface underneath. I would have no problem including pools in with the lot coverage, but say if somebody's putting a ground level deck in around their pool, clearly having the water going through the deck into the ground level, that's a porous surface. So obviously we don't want to include that under the impervious coverage, but we're including it under lot coverage because lot coverage definition is decks, irregardless of how high off the ground it is versus ground level deck versus a deck that's 3 feet off or 2 feet off your backyard.
Sense.
Well, and
There's I know a lot of towns are doing, a lot of people are doing that now, putting the ground level decks in around the pools to keep the impervious coverage low. Instead of going with the paver, paver the world, they're putting, the expensive ground level decks in around the pools.
right. Remember though, okay, the decks is impervious coverage was part of your original lot coverage. The cross out on the left, if you're looking at my proposed ordinance,
Yeah.
that cross out on the last section, decks, patios, patios are obvious, but decks were included in that impervious, that lot coverage. Right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we also the definition in that definition that's including that word.
There's other schools of thought where you can still include it in lot coverage, but not include it under the impervious coverage. So because, impervious surface, it's just I hate to say it's semantics, but it really is. That, are we going to give...
Oh, I recommend that you don't define impervious. I don't recommend, my number 3,
Yeah.
I'm recommending that you don't necessarily define that.
Yeah, because I see a lot of places that do, and it gets people caught up.
Correct. So the idea would be, if you're making the argument to the, right, that if the previous definition included decks, you don't have an argument. The proposed definition as a catch-all statement has to be covered by buildings and structures and expresses a percentage of total lot area. That for lot coverage.
Do we have a definition of what a structure is?
Yes, we do. The municipal land use law has a definition, and the definition is, and I'll paraphrase it because I know it by heart, but as a matter of fact, I think the planning board gave us that. And that's why I'm not recommending you adopt it, because it's there incorporated by reference.
Yeah, because I know you crossed it out.
Well, structure is defined by the municipal land use law. I took out tons of definitions.
Right.
Structure is a combination of materials to form a construction, occupancy, use, or ornamentation, whether installed on, above, or below the surface of the word structure.
Yeah, part of.
Yeah. So that's the definition of municipal land use.
Yeah, it's a tough call. I mean, like I said, it's a deck, some people argue it's not a structure because there's no roof, there's no coverage, and some people do because you need, most of the time, need construction permits to build it, so it's a structure.
Right, it's a structure, but under the municipal land use law, it's not a building.
Right.
The building
Right. I guess the overall, I mean, like I said, I guess our schedule still has the 50% for lot coverage, trying to define in this part. And we're trying to include decks and pools as part of that lot coverage. And the other part of it is we're removing impervious, the proposal is removing impervious coverage. How is the zoning officer going to determine whether decks, pools are impervious or not? Because we don't have, I mean, like I said, we only have lot coverage. We don't have a impervious coverage number. It's total lot coverage.
Under the existing definition, okay, if you were to make no changes in the existing ordinance as opposed to what was proposed,
Right.
okay? Let me just pull, I had it right in front of me.
%.
If you were to make, if you look at the ordinance, right, you really need to remove the first sentence, which says it's 50% in residential, 5 in, not where it's supposed to be in your bulk requirements. So all you would say is lot coverage shall include, but not be limited to, coverage, decks, patios, pavement, pavers, driveways, sidewalks, sheds, accessory buildings, gazebos, pools, concrete, stone, and gravel. That's what your existing ordinance says.
Right. I mean, personally, I mean, for this whole lot coverage part, I would remove decks out of the lot coverage. And it's either going to go towards, building coverage or it's not. Because we have that building coverage in our schedule.
All right, so what do you, so as I said, what are you saying? That the proposed definition should exclude pervious decks without.
Well, I would say pervious decks not included as part of building coverage.
Look at the definition for building coverage, because there's something about the deck that the 6 feet above the ground.
Yep.
Yeah.
Building coverage is the area covered by all principal accessory buildings structure, so that would include decks.
Right. So, but like I said, but
That's being proposed to be omitted.
So we were omitting that.
right. Yeah. So, like I said, so if my personal thing is that if the deck is included as part of the building coverage number, then it should not be included as part of lot coverage. So if it's a ground level deck, pervious or is porous underneath, or if it's a foot above grade and it's not counted as part of building coverage, not be counted towards lot coverage. That's my.
Let me get this right, though. I apologize.
Okay.
Some people's eyes are glazing over, I'm sure. In your definition of building, the only decks that are included in a building coverage, right, is impervious decks creating a headroom greater than 6 feet below the deck. Meaning it would only be a second floor impervious would be part of your building.
Right, which is kind of contrary, just from personal experience. I'm putting a second floor deck on with pervious underneath. I got counted towards my building coverage when I went for an application.
That's under your existing ordinance.
Correct. So
Now, and when you get to your lot coverage, you keep your building coverage as part of your lot coverage.
right,
And then it's trying to gather everything else that
Yeah, I'm just, like I said, I would not include decks that are not part of the building as part of lot coverage.
so
That's just
impervious
mine
decks not included in.
in building coverage.
What about pools?
I could go either way. Like I said, it's one of those things that, they catch the water if they're in ground with the mesh roof, the mesh cover. But above grounds, they put the hard top on. Sorry, I gotta keep talking. I mean, you can just make it above ground pools as part of lot coverage, and in-ground pools. But once again, in the summertime, when we get a lot of the rain, the rainwater goes into your pool, so therefore it doesn't go into the ground and it's impervious. But it doesn't go anywhere else either. It stays in the pool. It's not transversing into the water table. It's not going anywhere. It's a big, yeah.
But to go back on what Mr. Casagrande was saying before, was, it's to do with what size property now is going to fall into, who has to get a variance and
I hate to
different things that they want to put a pool in their yard.
Yeah, I hate to ask, do we have a maximum size of what a pool can be?
No.
Not that I'm aware.
I couldn't find it. I just wanted to make sure, but
Yeah, not that I'm aware. I mean, I'm not an expert on your ordinance, but I've read your ordinance more times than I've ever read any other town.
Yeah.
That's why I moved up. I came from the planning board up here.
yeah. I mean, like I said, once again, from personal, this is just me. I would remove pools out of part of lot coverage because we have all the setback requirements for a pool. And, if you want to put a deck in around your pool, it's going to shrink it down even more. Decks cannot go into setback areas. It's going to shrink your pool even more. You can't build a pool right onto your neighbor's property line. I mean, I would not, personally, just me, I would have to take pools out of lot coverage.
Okay.
Because,
Yeah, I'm with Councilman Williams on that too. Probably the better result, more desired result, because we could.
and we're still rapidly, and I don't want to say rapidly, but we're still evolving our land use books. We can do, I said, if we remove it here, then as we move forward with the other sections, we can make more requirements for pools of what is needed in the pool area, with, pool fencing, pool size requirements. We could say, pool's got to be a maximum of X amount of square feet when we get to that section as we move forward. But I think removing it from lot coverage right now is I think would be a benefit to the residents.
Yeah.
I will make those changes, seeing no other objections.
What is your opinion on that?
I honestly don't, that's
doesn't have one.
totally up to your town, it's a town thing. It's not, either way, it's not a huge piece of your lot coverage.
Right.
So it's how big are pools? 20 by 40 max?
Yeah. Yeah.
And to Councilman Williams' point, there's a lot of other restrictions that come into play that, I think already address the issues.
If we take it out of lot coverage and we put it under building,
We're just gonna take it out of lot coverage.
oh, you're just going to take, okay.
Are you bringing in food for those, or we think that in, or we think the lot coverage defined as taking out food?
No, I was going to keep what was there, except exclude from lot coverage the
Pool.
the pervious decks, and
But originally, you had recommended taking out that inclusion of each of the planning board after putting it back in.
well, the reason why this is what I recommend. This is what I recommend.
Yeah.
What I recommend to when you say this is what lawyers do and they cover this all, right? I'm going to tell you what your options, which include but are not limited to the following options, which means I'm covering my butt by saying I'm not going to give you all the options. I'm just going to, it includes the three I'm giving, and I don't like that approach when you're trying to tell people what they can do and they can't do, right? So that's why, as a lawyer, I would recommend that you, first of all, define lot coverage, what's there, buildings and structures, and expresses the total percentage of a lot. That's the lot area. That's what lot coverage is. And then you give an exclusion. Therefore, if it's not excluded, it's included. And it makes it so much easier for people who are coming here and less discretionary. Because if a zoning officer says, well, the list says includes but not limited to, I'm going to count all your planters that you want to put around your property as part of your lot coverage. The list is not exclusive. So that's really why I'm recommending it.
I think when we were talking about this, three of us, I had this in my notes, and I don't know if you guys have it in yours. But one of the things that we were concerned about is the lot coverage. How much stuff was covering the lot? How much was going to be included in the lot coverage? Because there are some people that are taking these tiny little lots that they live on and putting so much stuff on the lot, and then they want to put in a pool. And I think we even talked about above ground versus in ground, because the above ground pools were not considered a lot coverage because they were removable. They could be easily taken down. So if you make the pool part of the lot coverage, then that also, if the person decides to tear down their house, well, you can't build this monstrosity because you've already got part of your lot covered with the pool.
Well, remember too, I mean, the pool has always been defined as just a water surface area. Obviously, the sidewalk around the pool, is all impervious.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have a dog in this hunt. I mean, all we were trying to do is ask the board what those definitions were.
Right.
The one important thing is, and we don't know, because to my knowledge, we've never gotten a report. I've been here, I've never seen a report from the previous zoning board, which is supposed to report to you as to all the variances that were granted, which gives you guidance as a governing body, as a requirement in municipal land use. The zoning board report all the variances, which guides governing bodies to say, well, if they're giving all these variances because they meet this criteria, shouldn't we be looking at an ordinance? So you don't have a record, though, to my knowledge, of whether or not this is a problem with anybody, right? So we don't have is it a problem, or people constantly coming in saying, I need a variance from lot coverage for my pool? If you didn't have that problem, your community is not, it ain't broke.
But a pool is considered a permanent structure, correct?
Over 500 gallons.
So the question
Definitions.
is, that's the whole thing. The recommendation is don't count the water surface. And don't count wood and what we'll call Trex decks with gravel underneath.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be, from my perspective, the only change in the way you conduct it. That is a change in the way you conduct the business in the town.
And the other thing that you got to remember is that all of this stuff has to be constructed in a rear yard. You're not allowed to put a pool in the front yard. You're not allowed any of that stuff. So our front yard shape that you're going to see driving down the streets is not going to change based on these two little definitions. This is all, stuff in the people that we want to keep here in town. We want to keep people to enjoy their yards and their spaces. So if we give a little bit, and then for this definitions section, and we can rein in a little bit more down the road, regards to pools, given the maximums, like, hey, we're seeing all these maximum pools, let's rein it down, that if you want anything bigger than X amount of square feet, you need a variance for that.
Yeah, I agree with Chris. It gives more flexibility to define things around pools, as that might be necessary, rather than just addressing this in the definition and further limiting.
Okay. Whatever you say. The other, okay, move.
Yeah.
One of the things we need some direction on the porch.
Porch refusal.
The front porch has got to be open, but a back porch can have screens and windows.
But,
And
listen,
and the planning board wants screens, not windows.
so a porch, once again, is included in your building coverage. So, I mean, yes, we have the front porches, but in reality, in the rear yard, the porch is part of your structure. Yes, you can't, I'm not saying that you're not going to live in your porch. Hey, if it's a nice night, you may fall asleep out there in your backyard. But I don't think we should change the definition of a porch for a rear yard, because we have the definition for a front yard porch. But a rear yard, it's part of building coverage, and if you change it, you got to go through construction permits if you want to do anything to enclose it in anyway. It's just it's an overhang at that point. You want to enclose it in, you got to put windows in, you need construction permits. You're gonna need a zoning permit for that, but it's already included in building coverage. So personally, I don't think we should, have to define a rear yard porch. Sorry.
What's the thought process behind just having just screens and not screens and windows, vice versa? I'm just trying to, for what they're asking for the rear porch, I'm trying to get the thought process.
Okay, somehow in our conversation between Mrs. King and Mrs. Eilenberger, the definition of porch simply said a roof open area without screens or windows attached to the principal building. Somehow, because I don't make this stuff up, there was except for porches in the rear of the building, which may have windows or screens. Right?
Originally, we started with having screens, so that the person could have a screen in porch.
But we also talked about all-season rooms. Remember, we were,
Let's say we can't remember which one of everybody said windows and screens. There certainly was a recommendation in the tiny little committee, right?
right.
A rear porch be allowed to have screens so people could have dinner on their back porch and et cetera. And then the debate was whether or not you could have a 3-season porch in your town
Understand.
by putting windows in it, right? So the proposal came in as windows and screens. The planning board has asked for not windows, just screens. But as you said, and this is why we're dancing on the head of a pin, right? If you want to put windows up and your porch complies with all your setbacks, right? It's in building coverage. You can put windows in, you get a permit. You don't need to go to the front of the board. You can put windows in. Your zoning officer says windows or screens are considered an enclosure, so she would require the zoning permit for either one of them. But the board is recommending rear porches be allowed to have screens and still be considered a porch. That's your microphone. Sorry.
Thoughts?
I'm agnostic to this one.
I asked your zoning officer, has there ever been a problem with people converting their porches? And she said, she's only been here a short time. So.
Usually if you turn into a 3-seasons room, now you're adding windows and some sort of heat factor for spring and fall.
Right.
Which is going
No
to
longer
trigger
porch.
off a whole bunch of other permits and
Right.
So it's no longer a porch at that point.
no, it's almost,
Right.
Comes another room.
becomes another room of the house.
Correct.
I mean, realistically, I would recommend getting rid of that whole definition, the rear yard part. Like I said, screens and windows, I would say realistically, a porch shall mean a roofed open area without permanent screens or windows. Because, some people will put up screens just for the summertime and, but they're not a permanent screen. They're, you can put them in, take them out, put them in, take them out. I mean, I would delete that section for except porches in the rear yard, and I would just add without permanent screens or windows.
Including your front?
Well, because, I mean.
Why not?
Doesn't matter to me.
Because it's a porch I mean, A porch is a roofed open area without permanent screens or
Screens or
windows,
windows?
period. And, well, not period, then attached with direct access to the, I would remove that
I
stuff in
concur. Yeah.
parentheses.
So no delineation between front and rear.
You're removing the front and rear, and we're just adding without permanent screens or windows.
Attached and with direct access.
And then this way, if somebody wants to go out and have the expense of building a temporary screen for their summer when it's buggy out and they want to sit on their front porch anyway, at least they have a means of doing so, but it's not a permanent fix to.
I watched those screens from my dad's mom's house in Homeville when I was 8 till I was like 19.
Yeah. So like I said, I mean, you're thinking
There's
of
no
those-
anger there, is there?
Yeah, I mean, you're thinking of people, just along Shore Road will get the mass mosquito problems, and there's some people out there with front porches that, hey, you put up some temporary screens for the summertime when the mosquitoes get really bad, and you take them out fall, and I mean, once again, that's just my thoughts.
I concur.
I would, subject to any further public comment, regrets, when you go to move it, someone moves it with, for adoption. Changes as we discussed, I'll make those corrections.
Okay.
We can do that now, right?
Yeah, but you have to finish the public hearing. I went first, just in case.
Okay.
Anybody else want to discuss?
Explain the public, I guess we gotta.
We're
Oh, we're still open.
Public hearing
We're
is-
still open to the public.
open. The public hearing is open. Sharon, could you come up and state your name and address, please?
Sharon Bateau, Beverly Avenue. I have a question when you're talking about pools, and impervious surfaces, impervious surfaces. If the pool is not considered lot coverage, down a flagstone patio in your backyard, is that considered lot coverage? That doesn't make sense to me, and I think that's ridiculous. And a pool, I think, is much more harmful to the environment than like if you put down flagstones. When it rains, it seeps into the ground. Somebody who has an in-ground pool, that water doesn't seep into the ground, it sits there.
When it doesn't have a cover, it goes into the pool.
That doesn't make sense to me. It just,
Rains,
if I take a bunch of loose flagstones in my backyard and shape them into a patio, that's considered lot coverage, but the pool is not.
doesn't run through flagstones.
Because if there's spaces.
They're impervious, and that any of those impervious structures modifies the ability for water to percolate into the ground. So when you cover a 3-foot by 3-foot area with a flagstone, you have impeded the ability to percolate, and you've created stormwater runoff, meaning the water doesn't seep into the ground in that area, it moves. Sometimes it gets to the
Sure it does. I mean, if concrete's impervious, but if you have a bunch of like bluestone or flagstones and they're not like matched up little squares, they're not pavers, water goes into the ground.
But not directly.
Not directly. That's
The rainwater
will tell you
comes
that's not
straight down, so the stormwater straight down will go through those cracks. The stormwater that hits those flagstones has to go somewhere. That's why the flagstones are considered impervious, because the water cannot go straight through the flagstone into the ground. It has to go onto the flagstone, and then that stone directs the water somewhere. Just like the roof of a house. The rainwater hits the roof, and then the roof directs it out. So flagstone is...
And so people who have an in-ground pool that's got, lining that's made out of some synthetic material, and the water sits there, that's not considered lot coverage. I don't understand. The other thing is that I'm a little disappointed is not being talked about is the effect on the environment of things like pools.
We're talking about definition.
Right.
The borough's about to adopt a 28-page environmental stormwater management ordinance that latest and greatest environmental regulations regarding stormwater in this community, so it should be adopted within about 30 days, as soon as the engineer can figure out which ordinances has to be. This is just definitions. It has nothing to do with regulation, nothing to do with any of that. It's just defining things.
So here's another question. If I put up a pergola in my backyard, it's all like wood snapped together, doesn't have a solid roof, is not attached to my house. It's just basically like Tonka toys, like sticks, and it's all open, and there are a few around here. Is that considered lot coverage?
Probably with council change, it's not. It is now, though.
It is now, but with the proposed change, it would not be considered.
That doesn't make sense to me, and also what I find mystifying is that there's no regulations on what size pool you can put in. No
But yes,
maximum size.
there are plenty of regulations. There's technically no regulations of house you can put either, governed by all the regulations that apply to your land. Setbacks from the sides, the setback from the sun, the rear. Lot coverage was the amount of building, myriad of regulations that govern what you can put on your property. Just like there's no maximum house size, regulated by other things. It's regulated by your building envelope, so to speak.
There's no some regulations on what where you can put pool and, get the fence down, I don't think so.
Yeah, there's setbacks.
It's all in the rear yard, yeah.
Setbacks.
But nobody had, you're usually regulated by your lot coverage for all the things you put on your property.
Yeah, but you just said a pool's not considered lot coverage.
It's not going to be the water surface area is not going to be considered lot coverage based on this proposal. Not the pool, the water surface.
And just a point of clarification on that, because I understand when you think about a vinyl line pool, concrete pool, whatever, that water is not penetrating that and going into the ground. But a pool functions differently. It captures all that water, and then through a process, especially in the summer of evaporation, turning that water. And yes, I understand it's treated and so forth, but it handles runoff very differently than an impervious surface.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else? So what are we going to do with it?
So I'll move to close the public comment.
Second it.
Yes.
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 And I would like to make a motion to approve the ordinance per discussion and corrections that we had.
Amended per the recommendations of the governing body with respect to porches, lot coverage, setback line, and the front, rear, and side lot line definitions.
I'll second.
Yes.
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 Report to the committee that we're about halfway done with the land use, and we'll be back with probably in about a month, or month and a half, with the 400s. Right? But we're going to bring just so you know, we're going to bring the planner in on that, because that's going to be a lot of questions that you'll probably ask that we need.
We have ordinance number 2021-04, ordinance amending and supplementing section 22-603 of the revised general ordinances, Borough of Spring Lake Heights, entitled Prohibited Uses.
Make a motion to introduce that?
Second.
Yes.
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 The public hearing for that will be on April 15th.
April 15th or April 19th?
April
19th.
19th. John, were you referring to the reports notices? Well, that's because she kind of split everything. Okay. Trying to make me fumble up here. All right. Next on the list, we have the consent agenda. We have Resolution 2021-62, approving outdoor music for the Mill Lakeside Manor. Have Resolution 2021-63, another outdoor music for the Spring Lake Manor. We have 2021-64, approving the use of the Cornelius B. Kelly Community Center. And we have 2021-65, approving the Shore Municipal Alliance grant application for fiscal grant cycle, July 2020, June 2025. I'm sorry.
The Spring Lake Manor approval, his letter that's attached when he requested, he gave the date April through like November, but that, I didn't do the resolution extending that far out. I thought we'd do it 1 month at a time, depending on needs for actual.
Yeah.
So we'll be seeing it again, probably next month, but we only approved that now.
April, yeah, no, did see that. That's definitely how we should handle it.
Yeah, I think that'd be good, and as long as we reach out to John and let him know that, it's going a month-by-month basis. Okay. Does anybody have any opposition with the 4 items in the consent agenda? Want to pull anything out?
Make a motion
Okay.
to approve.
Second.
Yes.
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 Okay, so that brings us to Resolution 2021-66. This is a resolution of the Borough Council authorizing contracts with H2M Associates Incorporated for their engineering services relating to various projects and authorizing an appropriation for the cost of these services. Has to do with Ferry Muse wastewater pump station replacement.
I'll make that motion.
A second.
Yes.
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 We have Resolution 2021-67, approving the payments of the itemized claims as set forth on the April 1, 2021 bills list.
Make a motion?
Second.
Yes.
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 Yes, with the exception of the LoSAP. Yeah, Lincoln Financial. My apologies.
Yes.
Yes, with the exception of the Lincoln Financial.
And then finally, we have Resolution 2021-68. That is the awarding of the contract for Joseph E. Robertson, or the Robert E. Yeah, Joseph E. Robertson Park, bid awarding to Down to Earth Landscape, the landscape services that are going to be done there.
Motion.
Second.
Yes.
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 Okay. Is there anything else? Need a motion to,
Second.
Second.
Yes.
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 Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.